Welcome to the Success Partner Podcast. I'm Daya Naef, your host and founder of The Success Partner. On this show, we dive into the stories of attorneys, business professionals, and entrepreneurs who have navigated the ups and downs of building successful careers and businesses. From the strategies they've implemented to the challenges they've overcome, we're here to uncover the insights that can help you on your own journey to success. So sit back, relax, and let's get started. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Success Partner Podcast. I am your host, Daya Naef, and today we have Elizabeth Bachman, who runs Strategic Speaking for Results. That is a very aptly named company. I've had the pleasure of working with Elizabeth on some of my CLE programming, and I can't wait to share more about her with you. So, Elizabeth, why don't you just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Well, thanks, Daya. It's so great to have someone who's a former client to invite you onto the podcast. Like, they really liked what we did. So yay. I am a presentation skills trainer and executive coach and a former opera director internationally.
Wow.
So, and what I'm really about is helping women's voices be heard in places of power. I do work with men as well, but it seems to be mostly women who show up at my doorstep, metaphorically. And really I'm a language person. How do you show up? How do you be noticed? How do you be recognized for your strengths and your skill and taken seriously? So I've spent 30 years helping opera singers do that. And now I do this with business professionals.
That's wonderful. And when we think public speaking, we're thinking like keynotes and taking the show on the road, but isn't speaking used in like lots of stuff in life?
Well, it's also talking to a client, or talking to a prospective client even more. How do you present yourself? How do you show up as the person they're going to want to work with? And how do you work with your colleagues or competitors and have them take you seriously? So there are all sorts of habits that we use to diminish our executive presence. And having probably made them done all those mistakes, what I do now is try to help people not make the same mistakes I did.
What are some of those key mistakes that we're making and don't know it?
Well, one of the things I often tell my clients is match your message to the room. So if you're an auditory learner, say that out loud. Match your message to the room. Auditory learners learn best when they hear the words coming out of their mouth. And that is really, who are you speaking to? Who do you want to persuade to do what you want them to do? So it's moving someone to take action. And you decide what the action is. You've got to tell them why it matters for them. And there are, why should they care? The challenge is what I call the expert trap. This, especially for lawyers and other professionals like that, is getting into the how you do what you do. Because, it's so interesting and we're so cool. And, I can go on and on and on about speaker techniques, but that's not necessarily what the audience wants to hear. So I call it strategic empathy. Put yourself in the shoes of the people you're talking to and shape your talk, whether it's a conversation or a keynote or just a quick presentation in a meeting. Make sure you tell them why it matters to them. So the reason for this is what happens, especially part of the expert trap, is that we get caught in the trap of too much how and not enough why. And that's what happens all the time is people will say, yes, well, we can do this and this and this. And they forgot to tell people why they should care. Why should we be paying attention? Why should we be listening to you?
Yeah, that makes sense. And the way people are so strapped for time and bandwidth in their brain, they could easily just check out and work on something else in their heads if they don't know, hey, this is the information I'm going to get if I pay attention.
Well, and if you're doing a virtual meeting, which is the majority these days. The reality is people are often have you shrunk into a thumbnail in the corner of the screen and they're finishing their emails or maybe playing solitaire or something. Why should they be paying attention? And so as a presenter, one of the other things as a presenter is to always include interactive exercises. Ask people to write in the chat. Ask people to tune in. And the reason for that is because you want them to click away from the email and pay attention to you. The other piece is then often people are going to be listening in their car or watching on their phone. And this is also part of the expert trap, is the tendency, especially if you have technical information to share, the tendency is to put the entire text of the law up on the slide. And it's maybe 8-point font. And you're going to put it all in there, all that legal information. Well, what happens if they're watching on their phone? They're not going to be able to see that. One image, the picture is worth 1,000 words. That's true. One image can make the difference. And then you can say the important part, but you really want the image to catch their attention.
That's awesome. That's a great tip. And yes, it's the end of the year. So I'm both going to continuing legal education programs and putting them on all over. And it's been very interesting to compare my presentation to others. Mm-hmm. I also got some feedback from an organizer, and she said your session was very interactive. And she says, I have found that the women like to make more interactive sessions. They play games, they give away candy, they get people really involved. Whereas the gentlemen presenters just come up and read their presentation and say, any questions? No questions? Great. And they go. Now, yes and no. I mean, I'm there to get business. So I need to share my topic and get the information out. And of course, I want to be very engaging because I want to be memorable. Maybe if I was an expert on a specific area of law, then all I really want to do is impart the information. So maybe it's just a different motive.
Is that there are experts where somebody say, Jerry Smith is presenting. Oh, it's going to be terrible. And so they've already got the solitaire set up on the computer. I'm listening because I need that CLE credit, but I'm not going to retain a thing. So that's the other thing is, so I was an international opera director for 30 years. I spent 30 years persuading people, trying to move people to cry or to laugh, which is actually much harder. And if you are boring, it's a waste of their time. It's a waste of your time. And especially if you live, you have to travel somewhere and so forth. Why are you wasting everybody's time when it's not that hard to be interesting and to be engaging? It's a learnable skill. I've spent most of my lifetime either learning it or teaching it. You can be interesting. Make people enjoy your presentation. So then they come back. Another piece is, if you need to present to get business for your organization, for your company, for your practice, one of the best ways of doing that is to be referred get a referral from someplace where you've already given a presentation. So if Jerry Smith is just going to stand up there and read the text of the law out there, do you think the organizer is going to refer them to another if everybody comes back saying, wow, it was wonderful, it was funny, it was really funny, I loved it? That's also good. You can say the key parts of the critical information, especially if you're talking to a client, for instance. Say the key parts, but then send them the written version of what they need to know. Most clients aren't going to know how to read a page of legal information. And actually, I had a friend who, I didn't do this, but I've made people do this since, who had to deliver a bunch of employment law updates. What's coming up in employment law? And so she put in a bunch of things, and then every 5 slides or so, she put in a puppy or a kitten. It just, because she was speaking to big groups. And she said, I know it's after lunch and I know it's nap time. So are you awake? Here's a puppy just to make sure you're awake. Here are some kittens. Make sure you're awake. Just to make them laugh, which wakes them up. So there's another tip for you.
I love it. Yeah. Put in something everybody likes. I love to do a lot of rhetorical and non-rhetorical questions. So I really hope that people are paying attention and want to interact and want the information. And you've helped me great with that. So what's another really good success story that you would like to share?
Well, for instance, speaking of employment law, this was Gina, who was an employment lawyer, and she was really shy. So she was quite happy sitting behind her computer, churning out reports, etc. And then the head of the firm said, everybody else is busy, Gina. You're going to have to do the presentation to the clients. And she said, no, help. And so somebody sent her to me, and we worked on stories and metaphors. So here's another thing. Stories and metaphors in the speaking business, in the advertising business. You could talk about a clickable title. That's the hook. What's the hook that brings people in? So often I will start with a picture of a fishing fly. My dad was a fisherman, so I like little nod to my dad and a fishing fly. What's the hook that's going to catch their attention? And then how can you think of it as explaining the problem and the solution and the benefit, why they should care, to somebody who doesn't know a thing about law. Because in employment law, it's not that. It's the HR department and maybe a couple of managers. One of the things you can do is say the technical phrase or the name of the program and put it up on the slide, and then say, you can think of it like. So I just did the metaphor for catching people's attention. You can think of it like a hook that's going to catch that fish and have them paying attention. And so you can use both. Often I will, when I'm talking to doctors, this is part of the expert trap too. When I'm talking to doctors and scientists and lawyers, all of whom are experts and very proud of being experts, I can say, you could always say, I tell my patients it's this. So, think of it like this. How would you explain that to the client so that they can go home and say, I just learned why I have to pay attention to time clocks. I saw a presentation last week about a lawsuit involving time clocks rounding up. And to the benefit of the company, they jiggered the time clock so that people weren't actually getting paid for the amount of time they'd worked. Yes.
Wow.
And the ultimate lawsuit, the damage that the hospital system had to pay was $300 million, $299 million, for these two women who'd headed a class action suit. That caught my attention. I remember that. Mm-hmm. It was a whole bunch of legalese, but I remember was it really 300 million? Yes. We counted the numbers. We counted the commas. So that sort of thing, that's a hook.
Yeah.
A week later, I'm still talking about it.
Yeah, it is. It's like something that's grabs your attention, and it's like, can that be right? And then a lot of people say it again. Yes, this is right. Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you for coming on today. I really appreciate your work, both working with you and having you come and share with my audience. So how do people find you?
So the easiest way is to find me on LinkedIn. So I'm Elizabeth with a Z, Bachman, Bachman, 1 N for the German speakers. And that's where I'm the most active. Yes, I have a website and it's fine, but it's actually not as up to date as my LinkedIn is. So find me on LinkedIn and say that you heard me on Daya's podcast. Maybe you have some questions.
It's wonderful. I certainly hope people do reach out. I'm going to put all your contacts in the chat as well as your links to your YouTube videos. So thanks again, everybody. This has been another episode of the Success Partner Podcast. I am your host, Daya Naef. Please like, subscribe, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you for joining us on the Success Partner Podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation and found some valuable takeaways to apply to your own business journey. Remember, this show is brought to you by The Success Partner, where we help small law firms and business owners achieve unparalleled success through strategic guidance, operational excellence, and effective marketing. If you're ready to take your business to the next level, visit thesuccesspartner.net to learn more. Until next time, keep striving for success, and I will see you in the next episode.